the way that I say it, like if Catholicism is so beautiful, in which it is, I should just live life and as it is, and it should be a beacon. And I guess that's kind of like where this conversation is going. Like, just by being like living out your faith can move others just as much as social media could navigate someone's life into going into vice, whatever. Me, you, whoever watching this, just by living your faith should just be so beautiful and so moving that, like, you know what, I want to know what you know. What is up? Welcome to another episode here on my channel, Mitch Lozada. Another special episode in studio at the PHLV radio station here in Las Vegas. So big shout outs to PHLV radio. Be sure to follow them everywhere you can on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube, and everywhere you can find them. You know, we're going to be talking about a vast range of topics, you know, and so I have a few guests here today. And of course, before we get started, if you're new to this channel, what is up? My name is Mitch, Maverick Mitch. Hey, Mitch, all the Mitches, the call sign Don, and pretty much I like talking about what I talk about. So, current events, reviews, pop culture, social political commentary. Be sure to follow all of that here on YouTube. And of course, we're talking about a bunch of things, right? From Sin City to Saint City here in Las Vegas. And so we're going to have a fun time talking about that. So I'm joined by two guests here today. Returning for another episode, I have Danielle Basilio. Go ahead, introduce yourself. Tell them who you are, what you do.
Hi, I'm Danielle Basilio. I currently work as a journalist here in Southern Nevada, covering the drought specifically, and I'm excited to be here for a second time. Thanks for the invite, Mitch.
Awesome. Obviously, love having you here, and it's awesome. It's totally great, and so thank you. On the other side, we got Chester Carupo. Go ahead, introduce yourself, who you are, what you do.
What's going on? My name is Chester Carupo. To keep it very simple, I'm a lifestyle coach and nutritionist out here in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I'm excited to freaking be here.
Awesome. Thank you to be here. Again, I know Danielle through Bible study, and I know Chester through dance team back in the day. And obviously, you know, I have kept up with him on his Instagram, on his social medias. Obviously, like he said, he's a lifestyle fitness online coach and everything. And so, one thing that I have seen him do is a lot of, whether that's like martial arts, or I have seen him do like even like firearms training / competition. So he's coming in here more so like an outside perspective, you know, in the culture war, talking with me and Danielle, talking what's all this stuff. So definitely love him to have on this podcast. So starting off, talking about this Sin City, Saint City type of thing. So I want to kick off with Mark Walberg. Mark Walberg is here in Las Vegas. You know, he's bringing a lot of businesses here in Las Vegas, restaurants and all that stuff. And it looks like he might be even doing like a film industry, you know. And when it comes to like media, like put aside with the Filipino stuff, we have PHLV Radio and Film TV Network here in Las Vegas. So we have a lot of opportunity to grow here in Las Vegas, even though we're a desert, like an oasis, right? And so likewise, Mark Walberg is kind of like bringing a new Hollywood, you know, instead
What's
of
up,
like
guys? Mike Davis here in Centennial Hills, checking out On the Border with the one and only, the legendary Mark Walberg.
How are you,
Mark,
sir?
Great to be with you guys. I mean, this guy, I've never seen anybody take to our city the way you've taken to Las Vegas. You've made it your own Boston. Why are you taking to this city in this manner?
Not trying to make it my own Boston, certainly trying to just, bring something to the table when coming to Las Vegas, because Las Vegas, obviously, it has so much to offer, but I wanted to come with something to offer myself, whether it be hopefully bringing the film industry here,
right,
bringing, a factory here to make shoes and apparel, and creating other opportunity and jobs. I want to enrich the community and be a part of something. You know, like I said, Vegas is so generous. I've been welcomed with open arms, but I absolutely love it here. And, I think people are excited about the idea of new industry being
instead of like a woke Hollywood per se, with everything that's going on in Hollywood, with all the controversies, whether that's Me Too movement or even the child actors abuses in the past histories, I think it'll be a good fresh start to be setting up something, an alternative to what's going on in Hollywood. And likewise, Mark Walberg is a practicing Catholic. He has been very expressive of that, so much so like during Lent, he was advertising the Hollow app, which is an all-encompassing Catholic app that includes like scriptures and music and meditations, and so pretty much doing that, and he has like even do like advertisings with Mario Lopez. So again, very expressive. So it's interesting that Mark Wahlberg, if he can bring a different Hollywood on alternative, because there are very much like even Christian actors like Chris Pratt that's very expressive, Letitia Wright that's very expressive about their beliefs and faith, and so to have an alternative would be very kind of cool in this quote unquote in this Sin City. So I'll bring it to you guys. Initial thoughts as far as Mark Wahlberg, anything that you think about what he's doing and all that stuff. So go ahead.
First of all, I am such a big fan of Mark Wahlberg. I've always been growing up, and partly because of his Catholic upbringing and him always being so out there with his faith. And I think it's really cool that he moved out here, not only to start kind of the film industry over here. I mean, it's been coming along ever since like the early 2000s, if I'm being honest, but for him to be able to move his family away from Los Angeles to start their own new path has been pretty cool of him to do.
Yeah. I don't know if you want to jump in, if you have anything what your thoughts on initial Mark Wahlberg and any of his maybe movies. Is this something that is remotely interesting to you? Him like being here in Las Vegas, Chester?
I'm not too familiar with what he's doing here in Vegas. I've seen a lot of videos that he's here in Vegas with Mario Lopez. I thought that was pretty cool, but I'm not too sure what's going on with his plan is why he's here in general. But just based on what I'm hearing so far, it looks pretty awesome. Seems pretty awesome.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting just because he goes to Holy Spirit, right? Catholic Church in Spring Valley, and so it's. I think it's just interesting. Obviously, like when it comes to a lot of these things, it's not like you have to be, and this kind of goes into these conversations where we're going to have later on. It's not necessarily that you have to like tell everyone like I'm Christian or I'm Catholic, but just by living out your faith just through your daily life, I think people will appreciate that, and then again, it's not like you're not like introducing yourself like, hi, I'm Mitch Lozada, Catholic. Like again, it's just kind of like living your life as authentically as possible, and for like a person like Mark Wahlberg, who's very expressive. Obviously, he did a movie with Father Stu, the movie, right? And so he's been very vocal as far as his Catholicism, and like to be even on the Today Show, I believe, promoting the Hollow app and Lent and in general when it was during that time. And so I think it's just, again, like I was saying, I think it's very interesting that this is and I think it's a benefit, right? It'll bring like not only our sports teams already coming here in Las Vegas, right? We have it'll be cool, like just as much as the Daily Wire does their film industry, whatever. It'll be good to have an opportunity to have another film industry, like an alternative, right? And so I think it's just overall really cool that this is an opportunity for us. And then again, like I was saying, this is kind of like a renaissance / a revival that's happening here in Las Vegas. So I don't know if you guys like what else is that? Is that anything that sounds interesting as far as what's going on? So
yeah, absolutely. And I think one thing that a lot of practicing Catholics tend to forget is that we are called to evangelize out to the world, and whether that be through spoken word or action, it's something we are called to do and live that Christian life, because honestly, sometimes the closest time that anyone will go to Christ is through someone else's actions, and we have to reflect those actions as Catholics. So for him to move to a city called Sin City and try to evangelize to this area of the world is amazing for him to do. And
to Chester, like I don't know if you're very expressive with your faith. Like what is your faith traditions, and if you're willing to share or not share. So
well, I'm Catholic. I grew up Catholic. I did communion and I also did my confirmation. I did confirmation too. Now, what was the topic you wanted? What was the question overall? Again?
Well, like more or less, like how does like, I guess transitioning to Mark Wahlberg here and being in Las Vegas, like how do we like navigate that? Like even in yourself, I guess you have been, again, share as much as you want to, but like do you feel attracted to practicing or not, or all that stuff? Again, not to put you on the spot, but like, feel free, again, like on this show, like, obviously me and Danielle are very practicing, but this is no way like putting you down. If you don't, like, obviously have everyone is on a different faith journey, right? And so no harm to there. And obviously, like, when it came to like me and Danielle, like, this is kind of like a more later type of thing, you know? Like, it's not like we were always like this type of thing. And it's very interesting, like, where people is in their journey and everything. And so just kind of like reflect and like, how does this Mark Walberg type of thing speak to you at any point type of thing, you know, type of, yeah.
Well, to be completely transparent, I used to do it a lot when I was younger. I used to go to church a lot. I really kept in touch with just going a lot in general, mainly because my family was always going, and it just felt right to just go in there as well. But I've never actually done it myself. Like, actually, it was my decision to go to church. I'm just being completely transparent. I've even gone to different types of churches that wasn't part of my religion, and I just went there mainly because I was curious. But as far as what Mark Walberg is doing, I do want to get interested in what exactly is he doing. But overall, I do want to start getting in touch with my own religion a lot more than I've done before, but a little bit more intentional this time around.
100%. Like, and again, like, I hope you, like, maybe this is a good opportunity if you have any questions. Not that I'm well versed in apologetics, but I'm pretty good with a lot of things. And again, no expert in anything. But so just to give you kind of like a feedback, and so like for me, I've been always a practicing Catholic, whatever. Going to church on the weekly and everything. But in 2018, it just manifested so much or like just getting in faith, just looking at not only the spiritual side but the intellectual side. I just found so much greater fruitfulness. And again, not like we say this all the time, even in our last show, this is not us putting us on a pedestal. Obviously, we are always working within ourselves, and this is not in no way putting you down or anyone else down. And so I'm really hoping that anyone who's just watching this just has an opportunity to like listen to like the way that I say it. Like, if Catholicism is so beautiful, and which it is, I should just live life and as it is, and it should be a beacon. And I guess that's kind of like where this conversation is going. Like, just by being like living out your faith can move others just as much as social media could navigate someone's life into going into vice, whatever. Me, you, whoever watching this, just by living your faith should just be so beautiful and so moving that, like, you know what, I want to know what you know, and I think that's the beauty when it comes to faith traditions about that. So kind of going into switching a little bit gears, and we can touch back with Catholicism and all that stuff. I want to talk about the Whatever podcast. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Whatever podcast. They're like a dating podcast and everything. It's a guilty pleasure of mine. Danielle, I showed you some clips, but what's your initial thoughts with the Whatever podcast?
I will say it's a guilty pleasure too. Not that I completely enjoy argument all the time and the drama that comes from it, but I think it sheds light upon kind of the bigger issues of society nowadays. And for people that don't know what the Whatever podcast is, it's I don't know their exact names, but it's a group of men who bring in kind of ladies from all walks of life, and they talk about dating from their viewpoint and from their own standards. And it's almost a rebuttal to what modern dating is, because I mean, if I'm being real, modern dating kind of sucks. It's different from years past where the focus was at the end of the day going into holy matrimony or marriage, where nowadays it's all about broken communication and ghosting and just using someone for lust. But again, it sheds light upon bigger issues in our society for sure.
Chester, are you familiar with the Whatever podcast?
I've seen YouTube reels on it, but I haven't seen the full YouTube full video on it.
You know, like, again, a lot of their videos have been going viral, especially in a couple of months ago and everything, especially when Chase, he's a recurring guest. He was talking about, like, the whole, and this gets touchy, but, like, there was a question that was put in the super chat saying, like, if would you rather date the oldest woman in the world or a trans woman? And he said, like, honestly, bro, I would date the oldest woman in the world, just because if I dated a trans woman, that would make me gay. And then the other people like, oh, that's offensive or whatever, and all that.
The hottest trans woman in the world or the oldest woman in the world? Honestly, bro. In the world, because then I wouldn't be gay. Are you like, Chase? How dare you be transphobic?
Yes, actually.
Yes, actually.
Because if I had sex with a trans woman, I'd be having sex with a biological man, and I don't want to do that. Because I'd be gay if I had sex with a biological man.
That's not gay.
That's
And
gay.
I don't shut the fuck up, actually. She's right. I mean, that's really hateful, bro.
That's
really hateful, bro.
Would technically be homosexual. A trans woman is a biological man. Sue me. It's true.
That's up, right? But going back into the original stuff as far as the whatever podcast, and this is like the transitioning. So, you know, when I was talking about like Sin City, Saint City, like how that's cool if we're making like Las Vegas like a saint city, but how do we navigate that, right? Like in our current condition, like you were saying, like the current atmosphere, you can look at Las Vegas with all the vice that it has is no bueno. Like you can walk into like Fremont and see near half naked people on there, right? But I think it's interesting that there is, like, I counted last night, and I'll double check the numbers. There's 30 Catholic churches within Las Vegas, right? And there's like 2 on the Strip. There's Christ the King, I believe, and there's the Cathedral Guardian Angels, and it's on the Strip. One next to Luxor, one next to Encore, and like. I only know that because from Easter to Pentecost, I'm doing this whole tour of viewing Catholic churches. So I've been to Christ the King, even St. Charbel, which is a Maronite church. I visited all these other churches here in Las Vegas. I'm going to probably go to St. Andrew tomorrow in Boulder City. But okay, so the point here is like, when talking about the whatever podcast, you know, how do we navigate that? And what I want that, what I interesting for those who don't know what the whatever podcast is, you know, it's pretty much talking about these dating relationships, right? And like you're saying, they bring in like a lot of guests. They're located in UCSB, right? And so there's no shortage of people that just willing to go on that show, and they attract a lot of people who do OnlyFans, and they talk about that, and they also bring conservative people onto the thing to kind of like have a discussion as far as what's going on. And as of late, they brought in some really cool Catholics, like Michael Knowles, John Doyle, Lila Rose, Mary from Timcast IRL. And so again, there's a lot of people who is like kind of like countering the narrative, because there's this idea, and this is what I was saying as far as being a beacon of just living your faith, because you can see a lot of these women who are saying like about hookup culture and everything. They're not being fulfilled. Like they may be getting a lot of money through like OnlyFans, but is it really fulfilling? Like, is it happening? And so that's what I'm trying to get at when it comes to Sin City, Saint City type of thing, in which, like, sure, you're more than welcome to gamble and do all these what stays in Vegas type of thing, but is it fulfilling? You know, and to me, you find true richness in our case, the Catholic faith. So I rambled on a lot there, but like going back to the whatever podcast, is there anything that stands out to you, or going into how do we navigate our current world?
Right. I think with the Whatever podcast in particular, if you notice, one of the common denominators, and again, I do not mean to judge or put anyone down. I myself am broken as heck. I am not the best Catholic out there, but one common denominator with that podcast is their backgrounds, specifically the woman. See, they have a segment in the show where they talk about your family background, and a lot of them do come from broken homes. Either a divorced parent has cheated on other parent is in an abuse situation, or they don't even have that foundation at all. And that family foundation is so important to going back to just being rooted in one faith, but then I guess being rooted in old cultural practices that were more fulfilling than what is deemed fulfilling today.
Yeah. Yeah, and then for Chester, again, I know you just seen clips of the whatever podcast, but like, how do you? Is there anything of that speaks to you, or is like, hey, even like throwing out something like Andrew Tate, like how like I know you deal with a lot of fitness stuff. You talk about somewhat similar things, like body positivity and like improving yourself, right? And so even though you talk more on the physical workout side, but you know, I think it's all encompassing, like whether that's spiritual fitness or whether that's just like a social fitness. Like, do you think, as someone who does like lifestyle coach stuff, like, do you think there's an effect when it comes to like how your social life is, you know?
Well, so just based on the reels that I've seen so far, I noticed that everybody has their own standards. Everybody has their own core values.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of branching off a little bit. So when it comes to when I hear what they say, I don't really get like offended, if that makes sense. And it's definitely entertaining. But for me, I have my own set of core values. And when I take in clients, what's important is that like I don't try to set my own core values onto someone else.
Sure.
What's important is that like whatever core values you have, whatever religion you have, the goal is to adjust based on like your physical body. Social standards are different nowadays, so some people may need a six-pack, may need that external freaking what's that called? Need that physical body in order to gain that confidence, but I'm kind of branching off a lot right now. But as far as how it ties into... Sorry, I'm kind of going off again. What was the question?
Yeah, I mean, going into like, I think you touched upon a little bit of it, like a lot of the things in the whatever podcast is very superficial, right? Like whether like I need to have a social status of getting a lot of guys or getting a lot of girls because somehow that translates into like social currency, right? And like you can go back into like fitness and like obviously that builds someone's character and their body. And I'm not saying that you should. I very much I am like advocate of like body fitness and spiritual fitness and mental fitness and all that stuff. And so my thing is like I guess even in your line of like doing online coaching, like is there more of, do you think people are just doing this for like the social media type of thing, or are people doing this for kind of like I was saying, very superficialness? So
you kind of answered the question already. When it comes to fitness overall, just fitness in a nutshell, yes, it kind of is based on social media. Like, I always like to ask my clients, I'm like, just be fully transparent. Are you doing this for yourself, or are you doing this for, others? And majority of the time, they are pretty transparent. And they say they want to do it. They want to flex on the IG. They want to flex on social media. So again, I think over time it changed, like social standards of why people do things is based on, like I've seen a lot of reels and people value they were like, would you rather have the man of your dreams or would you rather have Instagram? You can only have one or the other. And they chose Instagram because it gives them more validation than the other. So I think a lot has changed for sure, but that's just my 2 cents.
No, that's good. I think you bring in a good point in which we got to remember that social media is kind of like an illusion, right? And it's also very addicting. You can get all these likes and all that stuff and all this validation, but like really you need to be rooted in like, well, one, for me, it's like you should be rooted in God, but like you should be rooted in reality, because a lot of like, especially what you can even throw in AI, like a lot of these, some of these things are not even real. Like, and so to live your life out of quote unquote vanity, I don't think is fulfilling. Like obviously you'll probably get that short term gain as far as like likes and attention and all that stuff, but how fulfilling is that? And then the level in which you need to keep on doing something, like I have seen people where like, oh, I have to post at 5 p.m. because that's when that's a hot point and all that stuff, that in my analytics, and how to live your life like that's pretty horrible, and so that's what going back into like the whatever podcast, these things like are coming to light, just having these conversations like we were talking about, like when people talk about the relationships and all this stuff, like how beneficial is it to you? There was this episode with I don't know his full name. It was Justin and Lila Rose, who is like a Catholic pro-life advocate, very strong. And so she's talking about family, and Justin, the guy on that podcast, was saying like, well, I don't mind having a wife and like essentially a bunch of mistresses, right? Like, and she's like questioning like, well, do you think that's gonna be good for your kids? And he got kind of triggered. He kind of pushed of like, well, it's my business and whatever. Like, he didn't want to answer it because he kind of knows like that's not beneficial. Like,
can I ask you one more question?
Fire away, honey.
Okay. If you have only one place in your heart for one woman, or you want to have one woman in your heart, I think you said, why don't you just commit to one and choose to be faithful to her?
I'm just not wired that way. I spent my whole 20s trying to fix myself. I thought something was
You're a man
wrong
of
with me.
self-control. You work out, you do business.
Yeah.
You can possess your own power and direct it the way you want to direct it.
It's not how I am.
Do you think that might be a limited mindset?
I think it's none of your business, but I don't want you to think I'm triggered by you. I'm not.
Okay.
I saw somebody say that, and I think that's interesting. I think you're annoying, but I'm not triggered. You know what I'm saying? No, you are. You're annoying in like this goody two-shoes type way, and that's fine. I'm going to live my life on my terms, unapologetically, like truly. So you can ask me this 85 different ways. At the end of the day, I'm going to walk out of here the same man.
If you're going to have a family and then still have like some side pieces on the side, do you really honestly believe that's going to be beneficial to your family? And like her just asking the question made him trigger because, you know, like he knows deep down inside that's probably not good, even though that's a life that he professes on social media, right? And so jumping back into Danielle, like, is there anything maybe we can, what other things in social media that we need to like look out for, and both spiritual or in just reality? I don't know.
Yeah, I think you hit on it earlier that social media is all a silver lining, and unfortunately a lot of people find validation through social media because it's instant, and we love instant gratification. It's like a human thing to like. And the unfortunate thing is that good things come with time, right? And so that's where it kind of goes back to faith, right? Like on my faith journey, it's not going to be instant where I am trusting in God fully. That's still a daily struggle that I struggle with every single day. But one core thing that I always hold and tell people too is that we are products of our past, but never prisoners of it. So you can yourself get out of those ways, specifically with social media, just limiting your time on it, realizing that what you see maybe on social media compared to like another, like for me, another woman on social media is probably edited, especially from bigger accounts. But I also know friends and myself, I'm going to be fully transparent, I'm guilty of editing my own pictures to make myself look better for that validation. And really that was a time before where I was really struggling in my faith, really didn't see Christ at the forefront of my life. But after, you know, at least when I've sought out Christ and am more fulfilled in that, I realized that, you know, true validation only comes from one source, which is Jesus, from a Catholic perspective.
And I think you put it right on the nose as far as like having like temperance limitations as far as social media. Like whatever you put your allocate your time to is what the results you're gonna get. And I'm sure that Chester can attest to that too. Like if you're putting more time into workout, obviously you're going to see results. If you're putting more time into whatever video games, and I'm not dogging video games, I'm playing a lot of video games. Shout out to Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, and Jedi Survivor. But you know, like whatever you put your time into is the results you're going to get out of, right? And so going back to Chester, like what challenges do you see a lot of people going into just in general, like lifestyle stuff?
So Danielle kind of covered it already as far as instant gratification. This is the biggest thing that a lot of the fitness industry has overall, is they want fast, like freaking results. They want to be able to get this specific result in 30 days, 90 days. And that's because of all the marketing nowadays. 75-day hard, 90-day challenges. But in reality, it's hard to solve that 10-year habit, 10-year problem in a matter of 30, 60, 90 days. You got to give yourself more of a long-term approach. And I've talked about, you kind of mentioned a little bit, slow and steady always wins the race, and most of the time, slow and steady is more sustainable than trying to find the fast instant gratification and just fast results. Because most of the time, I'm kind of branching off towards the fitness part of it. When people get fast results, there's a higher percent chance they're going to gain all the way back, or even go back to square one, or even worse, start off worse.
Yeah.
Sense.
You know, I kind of want to, like, that just brings something to mind as far as even my spiritual journey. Like, it is constantly growing, and it's like sort of it. Part of it was like fast per se, but it is this constant. And I'm glad that it wasn't a fad. Like, I'm glad that it wasn't like, cool, I got like the spiritual high and I'm done. It is this constantly growth and looking into it. So like, yeah, I can say the same thing with like my spiritual fitness, and so. As maybe transitioning into as we're going into this talking, like I said in the beginning, like Sin City to Saint City, and navigating even how like the Whatever podcast and the dating world and how the current environment is. I also want to throw in some things with like the 7 deadly sins, especially being like Sin City. Kind of want to touch on that. Are you guys familiar with the 7 deadly sins?
Oh yeah, I struggle with them every single, like still struggle with all of them. Seriously.
Yeah. Chester?
I'm not too familiar with all 7. I know there's a few ones that come to mind, like lust, gluttony, but I'm not too familiar with all 7.
Yeah. Shout outs to anime, Full Metal Alchemist. And so like they had like the 7 sins there. So they had like pride, wrath, envy, sloth, gluttony, greed, and lust, right? And so I find those things interesting. And just because obviously we can navigate that, and everyone has maybe what they're probably more susceptible to, right? And so obviously there's some virtues that go against it. So like whether that's temperance or kindness or humility, especially when it comes to pride. And so I think those are cool things to look into in regards to how to navigate what's going on in the current world and everything. And so pretty much I also want to throw in and my issue kind of going into this is kind of like I'm going a little bit passionate controversy type of thing. So next month is June and it is Pride Month, whatever. And again, I have friends LGBT, all that stuff, right? And so I don't take issue with my friends who are gay, whatever, and all this stuff. I take issue with woke companies doing this, what even gay people have mentioning, like rainbow capitalism, right? In which they're just promoting this just to for sales, whatever, right? And so I just take issue with some of these things, especially when it comes to the word pride. Like as far as like as Catholic Christians, whatever, like it would make more sense to me if it was like History Month, like gay, lesbian, transgender History Month versus Pride, because I just take issue with the word pride because it's the vice that made Lucifer fall, right? And it's like why is there emphasis on pride, right? And so I don't know if you guys made connections with that or anything, but like again, like pride is what is kind of going into like theology. Like pride is what made Satan fall, right? It's pride of, it was essentially you showing like Jesus becoming man. Like why would you lower yourself into man, becoming fully God, fully man, and he could not handle it. Likewise, when it comes to, as Catholics, we venerate Mary, not worship Mary, but venerate Mary in a sense that she is the most powerful human, beside putting Jesus aside as fully God, fully man. Like Mary is the queen of heaven and earth. She is a queen of angels, right? And so she, like, again, she is a creature, not to say that she has no divinity, no power, no nothing. Don't make a mistake with that. But she has favor with God. She has grace with God. And, you know, and it's super crazy. Like, when I hear, like, anti-Christians talk about, like, oh, you degrade women. Like, the most powerful woman in the universe is Mary, the mother of Jesus, the mother of God, right? And so, and then going back to like Satan and pride, that's one of the reasons why Lucifer fell from heaven, is because a human was to be queen above the angels. A human, and Mary is supposed to be the queen of heaven and earth, and Lucifer could not handle that. It was wrath, pride, and envy that made Lucifer fall from heaven. And so, because he's an angel, he's a seraphim angel, like he's the ninth choir angel, right? And so real quick, do you guys knew about that? Anything I just mentioned right now?
Yeah, a little bit about the fall of Satan, and then obviously that we don't worship Mary as Catholics. I actually just had the conversation with someone about that and had to explain to them that, you know, we don't pray to Mary, we pray through Mary. It's kind of like asking a friend to pray for you. Yeah. So usually that's a good basis to explain the whole Mary concept. But I get, like, for a lot of people, it's a hard concept to wrap their head around.
Yeah. And then for Chester, since you're, again, not putting you down or anything, since you're kind of like culturally Catholic, was that something new that you ever heard before?
I feel like I've heard of it before, but I've never actually knew the fine details until you just mentioned it.
Yeah. And also just going in that conversation, maybe something that you can use in those conversations, like Mary is like the moon. The moon does not emulate light. The moon just shines, reflects the light of the sun, and it works out in this analogy because the sun as a child, right? And so I think that's the best way analogy that you can express what Mary is. She is like the moon in which she emulates light, but it's not light that she is given herself, right? It's just a reflection of the sun. And so I think that was the best analogy. And let's go real quick into what are your thoughts about modernism and traditionalism? Do you think that we need to go back to this traditional life, or is modern good and has it gone off the rails? I don't know if you guys are keeping up with all of that. So
as of right now, my life completely changed who I was around 2-3 years ago. Like I lived the nightlife a bit. I've took the cool pill, if that makes sense. So I think it really does, who you surround yourself with, and at the time, it's very easy to just copy and adopt habits with people that you surround yourself with. So it's funny because at the time, that hookup culture you guys were talking about, it was a part of my life, and I never really I never questioned it, and it just made sense because everybody else was doing it. But I think over time, I don't know what made me want to choose to just quit my job at the beach club mid-season as its busiest season. But I don't know what made me want to quit and decide to go full-time and bet on myself. And when I took that chance on myself, I noticed that everything changed. My mentality changed, how I see life change. So I think when it comes to social standards, I think it really does help with just who you surround yourself to begin with. Because I have a lot of rules in my life. I make sure, even this, I wouldn't be coming to this podcast if I didn't believe what you guys do. So I have a lot of rules when it comes to, I don't allow myself to get tempted. Even if there's someone's Instagram profile, I know I will be tempted, I will unfollow that person. I have very strong rules, and it has helped me so far as this current journey.
I find that very fascinating. I you have this indirectly, and I feel like it's very spiritual, it feels like you have a guardian angel that's directing you, and just as much, and even in my younger life in high school, I can recall my friends who did a lot of drugs. They're like, Mitch, we're going to do something. We're not inviting you. It's nothing personal, but this isn't for you. And I knew that because I was very straight edge, and I'm still pretty straight edge and all that stuff. And so I did not take offense to that because in some way they were watching out for me, And so it's fine. I find it very interesting that even yourself, maybe you don't attribute it to anything, but I think it is. I think there is some level of spiritual forces that's navigating in your life, and I truly believe that. And so wrapping it up here, last portions of anything. And so Danielle, thanks for being here. Thanks you guys for having these conversations. I hope you guys enjoy having these conversations. Maybe it's not in your normal, maybe for Danielle it is, but any quick things that last things you want to throw in?
Sure. I think there's a quote by Saint Therese of Lisieux. It's the world is thy ship, not thy home. And it's just such a good reminder that, we are passers-byers on this world, that there is eternal life after that, and that we really shouldn't be of this world, that we should not be focusing and tuning into worldly pleasures that don't satisfy our journey to eternal life. And I think that's just so important. It's definitely a quote I keep in the front of my mind, honestly, a lot. And it's something that I hope other people, when they hear that, maybe look into it a little bit more, but realize that, there's a lot greater things past what we have in this earthly world.
Yeah, and where can people find you?
Instagram, at Danielle Basilio, DanielleBasilio. Kind of a long name. I'm sorry, I actually misspelled it on our last episode too. So, but yeah, that's where you can find me.
And Chester, go ahead. Any last things?
If I had to say one last thing, just going off what we were talking about today. So this is what I believe in. I believe life is full of seasons, and most rules, at least superficial rules, are very seasonal, if that makes sense. So if you guys are in a in a lifestyle where you guys are constantly adopting instant gratification, I would challenge you to pick a season of your life and try something totally opposite. Start choosing the slow and steady process, and you may end up wanting to adopt that life full time. And all it takes is choosing a season to push yourself through that section. So that's my only tip for instant gratification, to solve that. Because especially for a lot of people, they get stuck in it so much, but when you think of it like a season, it's more easier to take action on a seasonal thing than it is of a long term, this is what I'm adopting full time. So try something seasonal, you may end up liking it, and it'll take off from there. That's kind of like what happened to me, if that makes sense.
Awesome. And where can people find you?
On Instagram at Chester Carupo, ChesterCarupo.
Awesome. Okay, so wrapping this up, thanks again for being here. Like I was talking about Saint City, Sin City, I think one thing that we can grow with scripture, and not to make this like so super Catholic, but obviously I don't shy away from my faith, is like scripture, Romans 5:20, where sin abounds, grace abounds more. And I think we can have that revival here in Las Vegas and just be a beacon, especially for a lot of things, especially in Las Vegas and all the vices that's going on. And so just real quick, if you follow me on Instagram at Hey Mitch Mitch. You can follow me on Twitter, Maverick Mitch. And see you in the next video. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video. Peace. Be with you. E como espíritu tuo.